All praises to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and peace to everyone joining on this program. This is the Fountain of Israel's Bible Studies program, and as always, it's an honor for me to stand before you on the Lord's holy Sabbath day. Now with that, before we get started, let me go ahead and remind you to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And please don't forget to tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. And while you're at it, do not forget to smash that notification bell. Why? Because I don't want you to miss any of our lessons. And since you're down there already, if you feel so inclined to donate because you feel you are being edified by these lessons and you would like to donate, check the description box down below. Now with that, we're going to go ahead and get that part out of the way and on to our lesson. Our lesson today is Hannuka, the Feast of Dedication. Hannuka, the Feast of Dedication. Now, if you guys been with this ministry for any length of time, then you know that we study the biblical holy days that is found in Leviticus 23. However, this particular holy day is not part of the Most High plan of salvation, right? It's not part of Leviticus 23. However, some people would like to celebrate or observe the Feast of Dedication. Now, this particular lesson, we are going to go over the Feast of Dedication. We're going to see what it means, where it came from, look at a little bit of history of it, so that you guys can have a better understanding of the Feast of Dedication and what it means and what it symbolizes. Now, is it one of those mandatory holy days to observe? No. If you do observe it, is it a problem? It is a sin? Is it an affront to the Most High or the Messiah? No. We're going to look at exactly what it is, right? So, in the shortest way I can tell you, it is really about the rededication of the temple. Simply taking back the temple and rededicating it to God, right? That's the shortest way we can put it. But we're going to unpack that because it's not just that simple. Also, people say, well, look, this is some brand new man-made holiday that, the Most High, he didn't sanction this. This is not what he wants. And, they did not do any type of, this dedication stuff that they're talking about. Well, let's take a look at that. Let's look into that to see if it's something that's completely made up and never been done before, or does it have some biblical basis? So let's take a look at that. So we're going to begin in the book of Numbers. We're going to look in the book of Numbers. And with that, let's take a look. We're going to start at chapter 7. And when we get to chapter 7, we want to look at 84. Let's look at verse 84. And let's look at it. It says, "This was the dedication of the altar in the day when it was anointed by the princes of Israel, 12 chargers of silver, 12 silver bowls, 12 spoons of gold." Now let's look at something real quick. The first thing it said in verse 84 was this was the dedication of the altar. Let's look at what dedication means. When we click on dedication, which is in the Hebrew 2598, and let's look at the meaning. It says Hannuka. It says Hannuka. So this is the very first Hannuka or dedication of the temple. Okay, and it says the meaning in the lexicon is dedication or consecration. That it says initiation. This is the first one. That is consecration or dedicating or dedication. So dedication or Hannuka means dedication. Also consecration. So right out the gate, we see that Hannuka was a biblical thing. And what did they do? Let's go on over to verse 88. Let's continue in verse 88, which reads, "And all the oxen for the sacrifice and of the peace offering were 24 bullocks, the rams 60, the he-goats 60, the lambs of the first year 60, And this was the Hannuka of the altar, the dedication of the altar after that it was anointed. This was the Hannuka of the altar. So we can see right at the outset that it is not something that's just made up. Okay? Now again, you heard me say, do you have to celebrate or observe this particular biblical holiday? Right? So I didn't say holy day because it's not, the Most High says, okay, you got to do this and da. Okay, this one is, they celebrate it, take it back to the temple from the Greeks, and we'll read that, and not being utterly destroyed, right? So they wanted to bring that back to the table. They wanted to say, no, the temple, we want to win our freedom again. We're no longer to be oppressed. We're not going to let you desecrate the temple. And they took it back, which it was a cause for celebration. I mean, let's be honest. That was definitely a cause for celebration. Now, I know a lot of people say, well, we're not at the temple. We don't have it anymore. No. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. But I will submit to you that we should at least know what this holiday is all about. We should at least know the history. Okay? Both what is being said in the Bible, in the Apocrypha, and in history. Wouldn't you agree with that? We should at least know what it is. So with that in mind, let's continue. Let's keep it going. We're going to go to 2 Chronicles. Go to 2 Chronicles, and when we get there, we just want one verse. 2 Chronicles, we're going to go to chapter 7. And when we get there, we're going to read verse 9. And in the 8th day, they made a solemn assembly, for they kept the dedication of the altar 7 days and the feast 7 days. Now we're talking about, Feast of Tabernacles, okay? But again, they still dedicated. They kept that the dedication of the temple, right? So we're talking about the Feast of Tabernacles on this. Now, when the Hanukkah was instituted, it was a different day because it was the day that they took back the temple. Okay? But I just want to point that out. So now let's go to 1 Kings, if you will. Go back a book, or a couple of books if you consider 1st and 2nd. So we're going to go to 1 King chapter 8, if you will. 1 Kings chapter 8. And when we get to chapter 8, we want verse 63. And it says, and Solomon offered a sacrifice of peace offerings, which he offered unto the Lord, 224 oxen and 120,000 sheep. So the king and all the children of Israel dedicated the house of the Lord. Dedicated the house of the Lord. Okay, so they Hanukkah the house of the Lord. Okay, so that's the Hebrew word Hanukkah. In English, dedication, right? A consecration. So they did that. So Hanukkah is not a new thing to the Hebrews. Okay, it wasn't a brand new thing. Okay, so if you guys want to memorialize Hanukkah, then okay, fine, because we're memorializing all the feast days, right? So with that, we're going to go over to Haggai. We're going to go to the book of Haggai. And we're going to go to chapter 2 of the book of Haggai. And we're going to read 10 through 14. Okay, 10 through 14. Chapter 2. In the 24th day of the 9th month, in the 2nd year of Darius, came the word of the Lord by Haggai the prophet, saying, thus said the Lord of hosts, ask now the priest concerning the law, saying, if one bear only flesh and the skirt of his garment, and with his skirt do touch bread, or pottage, or wine, or oil, or any meat, shall it be holy? And the priest answered and said, no. Then Haggai said, if one that is unclean by a dead body touch any of these, shall it be unclean? And the priest answered and said, it shall be unclean. Then Haggai answered and said, so is this people, and so is this nation before me, says the Lord, and so is every work of their hands, and that which they offer there is unclean. So this is the temple going down. This is Israel cutting corners, doing what they want to do, not doing things as prescribed by the Most High. And the prophet Haggai is pointing it out, which is why he gave some answers. He threw out a couple of questions that begged for an answer. And the priest knew. The priest knew. He's saying, if you did all these things, if one bear holy flesh in the skirt of his garment, and with his skirt do touch the bread, the pottage, the wine, the oil, or any meat, shall it be holy? And of course the priest said no. And then he said, if anyone is unclean by a dead body, touch any of these things, will that be unclean? They said, yeah, that'll be unclean. So he says, what you've been doing, yeah, that's unclean too. So he's making a point. Okay, so this is when things start going down. What wasn't going pretty good. We're going to go on over to Ezra. Okay, let's go on over to Ezra. And when we get to Ezra, we want chapter 6. We're going to read 6 and 16. Chapter 6, verse 16, we're going to read 16 and 17. 16 says this, and the children of Israel, the priests and the Levites, and the rest of the children of the captivity, kept the dedication of this house of God with joy, and offered at the dedication of this house of God 100 bullock, 200 rams, 400 lambs, and for a sin offering for all Israel, 12 he-goats, according to the number of the tribes of Israel. Okay, so let's read that again. And all the children of Israel and the priests and the Levites and the rest of the children of the captivity kept the Hannuka of this house of God with joy, and offered at the Hannuka of this house of God 100 bullocks and 200 rams and 400 lambs, and for a sin offering for all Israel 12 he-goats, according to the number of the tribes of Israel. Okay, they offer the Hannuka. Okay, of course this is the first temple that they're doing, but they offered a Hannuka. Join me over in Nehemiah, just one book up, and we'll go to Nehemiah chapter 12. Now we're going to bear this out a bit by moving into the Apocrypha after this, but we're going to go chapter 12. I just want verse 27, if you will. And at the Hannuka of the wall of Jerusalem, they sought the Levites out of their places to bring them to Jerusalem to keep the Hannuka with gladness, or keep the dedication with gladness, both with thanksgiving and with singing and with cymbals and psalteries and with harps. Celebration. It was a big deal. I wanted to point this out to you because the Hannuka, or dedication or consecration of the temple, was important. It was a big deal. That was the thing. And so I wanted to lay the groundwork before we jump into the Maccabees, where we're going to go a lot of in the first Maccabees, but we're going to get a little bit into the second Maccabees as well. Right? Now, before we do that, let's go and read a little bit of history. That's what I want to do. I want to read a little bit of history. Now, this article, I'm getting it from World History, right? worldhistory.org, but you can find yourself, and it's, just type in the Maccabean Revolt. That's all you have to do, Maccabean Revolt, and you'll find it. All right? So we want to look at this a little bit. We're going to go outside the Bible, look at history, and then we'll go to the Maccabees. To the Apocrypha, where we find the actual accounts, right? But in history, it says this: the Maccabean Revolt of 167 to 160, so it lasted 7 years, right? This revolt, BCE, 167 to 160 BCE, was a Jewish uprising in Judea against the repression of the Seleucid Empire. The revolt was led by a country priest called Mattathias, His military followers became known as the Maccabees. Successful Jerusalem was captured and the Temple of Jerusalem reconsecrated. What did we just say? Consecrated. An act still commemorated today in the Jewish Hannuka festival. The Seleucid Empire. After the death of Alexander the Great, his kingdom was divided into four during the wars of the Diadochi, Egypt. Egypt, the Seleucid Empire, the kingdom of Pergamon and Macedon, including Greece. That's where Greece is in, including Greece. Egypt, governed by Ptolemy I, Soter, allowed for Judaism in Jerusalem to flourish with very little intervening in the 3rd century BCE. However, during the 2nd century BCE, the Seleucids, having gained dominance over Judea, went to enforce dominion over Egypt and the Jews. Now, the Jews under Ptolemaic rule. Theocracy and politics were intertwined in the 2nd century BCE in Jerusalem. The social structure of Jerusalem was run by the Jewish aristocracy, such as the priests and the high priests. Although Hellenism, which had spread in the 3rd century BCE after Alexander's conquest, was the dominant culture around Judea, and the Greek way of life pervaded the area. The Jewish community remained steadfast to their own practices. They largely ignored Hellenism, and under Alexander and the Ptolemaic dynasty were respected in doing so. The Ptolemies gave the Jewish people their civil rights, and they lived contentedly under their rule. The Second Temple of Jerusalem was the most important structure to the entire Jewish community. It was the social and religious center of the Jewish people, not to mention the economic benefits of trading in the temple. But they really love using the term Jewish. Now, I know it's Northern, Southern Kingdom, Judah broke up with I get it, but man, just Jewish, just Israelites, but that's neither here or there. This feeling of the elect, the chosen ones, was crucial to the Jewish Israelite self-conscious Seleucid takeover. In 198 BCE, all of the goodwill of the Jewish community towards the governing body turned to hatred as the Seleucid Empire defeated the Ptolemies, taking control of all Judea. As the Seleucid Empire expanded, so too did their notion of Hellenism. The Seleucids under Antiochus III controlled much of the Arabian Peninsula, forcibly converting many of its new populace to Greek culture and religion. And the intent in the hegemony continued as they took Jerusalem. Antiochus wanted to Hellenize the Jewish community. His aim was to remove any feature of Judaism that would define it from the Greek religion and other accepted monotheistic religions because of the benefits of the Greek culture, which included economic integration between all of the Greek states and the pressure of regime. Many Jewish people accepted Hellenism. This is when they were saying that a lot of Israelites became Hellenized, right? Greek culture. This already strained relations between the pious Jewish people that did not accept Hellenism and the Seleucid Empire were shattered when Antiochus Epiphanes adopted his father's policy of universal Hellenization, but took it to new heights. We're going to read that in the Maccabees. As Epiphanes looked at Alexander the Great of Macedon and aspired to have his name in the history books alongside him, he needed to distinguish himself above his predecessors. The best way to do that, he thought, was to enforce the Greek culture on all of the Jewish population, a feat that had so far been elusive. He accepted the bribe and approved the takeover of Jason of the Oniad family to the now de facto client position of high priesthood. Antiochus used Jason's power as the high priest over the Jewish people to build a gymnasium just outside the temple. With that, strengthening the Greek culture in the heartland of in the Jewish community. It was a symbol of Greek Hellenism, and having it outside the temple showed the Jewish community exactly who was in charge. The Hellenistic idea of masculinity was shown in the rule that one must be naked to enter the gymnasium. Being naked in public was strictly forbidden under Jewish law. So any Jewish person that went into the gymnasium violated the laws of the covenant. The state understood this and therefore made it a legal requirement for anybody who would afford it to go at least once, right? So that's why when you see a lot of these Greek statues, they're naked. So now you're starting to see what that is. They're naked, right? And then we see in the Bible where it says, and saw her nakedness, or this person was uncovered, that you should cover up your nakedness. You see what I'm saying? So this is where it comes from. And what they wanted to do in the Greek Empire, when they really wanted to Hellenize people, they wanted them to actually break the covenant. They wanted them to go against their laws, go against their God. They wanted to show supremacy, the Greeks that is. They wanted to show supremacy. And they were in charge. They were ruling. Continuing. This was a method of making the state bigger and of greater authority than any other religion other than the Greek polytheism. Thus, many Jewish people fell in line and acquiesced to the regime. Antiochus, buoyed by his success of the gymnasium, decided to push harder against the Jewish religion. A short-lived rebellion took place, and when this was put down, Antiochus' views were hardened. He defiled the holy temple, vandalizing it, and erected an idol on the altar. He then outlawed certain practices such as circumcision and the Sabbath. Altars to Greek gods and idols were placed in every town, and those who did not pray to them and converted from practicing Judaism were put to death. And this is how hard they fought. See, this is the information. It's much more than people saying, "Oh, well, we don't have to do that. Don't do Hannuka. Don't worry about." It goes deeper than that. It goes a lot deeper than that. Here we're learning the history. What happened? We're getting a little bit more details. What's the big deal of Hannuka, right? Well, this is a big deal. They're trying to erase the covenant. They're trying to erase the heritage. They're trying to erase their language. They want to erase their God. They want to Hellenize everyone in the region, obviously. So the rebellion. Although many of the Jewish community were at this point Hellenized, the persecution of the Jewish people and the destruction of practicing Judaism united the Israelite people in Judea. The Israelite people, I'm changing from Jews to Israelite. The Israelite people needed someone to lead them. When Antiochus sent some of his officers to the town of Median to lay down his tyranny and enact the oppressive laws that he had enforced, he was met by a local Israelite country priest named Mattathias. This turned out to be a very portentous meeting. The country priest was ordered to fulfill his duty to the state and be the first to sacrifice an animal to an altar of an idol. He refused, and when another Jewish Israelite man stepped forward to do it, he murdered the officer. Tearing down the idol, Mattathias preached, "Let everyone who is zealous for the law and who stands by the covenant follow me." We're going to find this in 1 Maccabees 2:27. The Israelite people had their leader. He and his 5 sons, John, Simon, Judah, Eleazar, and Jonathan, rallied the Jewish population, and in 167 BCE, the Israelite people rose up with Matthias as their leader. Soon after 167 BCE, the family of Mattathias became known as the Maccabees, or the Hammer. They recruited tough Jewish people on the way and began a guerrilla war as they started to take over the northern villages of Judea. They tore down the altars of idols and killed those who worshiped them, even many Hellenistic Jews. Mattathias died in 166 BCE, but just before death, he left Judah in charge of his army. Antiochus underestimated the severity of the rebellion and the size and strength of the Israelite army. Instead of crushing them with the full force of his armies, he set his less effective generals on them. Judah, a wise and courageous military general, defeated them with consummate ease. Antiochus was made to look foolish. As a response, he set out to exterminate the Jewish population in Judea. Antiochus sent for his most glorified general, Lysias, and around 60,000 Seleucid soldiers to try and do just that. Judah was severely outnumbered. However, the familiarity of Judea was a huge advantage for the Jewish army. Using the slight hills and the superior knowledge of the area, they outmaneuvered the Seleucids and slowly they picked them off. Finally, they came to battle. Judah had gathered another 7,000 Israelite rebels, but they were still outnumbered by at least 5 to 1. As Judah stood there looking at the masses, so the story goes, he prayed to God for victory. The Jewish people overcame the massive difference in manpower to secure an almost impossible victory over the Seleucid Empire and over Antiochus. After the defeat, Antiochus' armies were devastated. They met again when Judah's army was at the gate of Jerusalem, but it was a much shorter battle. The Seleucids were bereft of hope as Judah drove the enemy out of the holy city. The Israelite army had defeated Lysias. When Judah and his brothers went to the temple, he saw the destruction and defilement that Antiochus caused upon it and was overwhelmed by grief. We'll look at that in 1 Maccabees 4. And on the 25th December 1965 BCE, after months of work clearing and cleaning, the temple was finally rededicated to God. The celebrations continue for 8 days, as it is known to this day as the celebration of Hannuka. You guys getting this? Now, let's look a little bit at the aftermath and then we'll jump into the Apocrypha. It says, the Maccabees had accomplished their pursuit of religious liberty and were going after political independence. And although the Jewish people supported their fight against the shackles of religious desegregation, they were unsure of the political and cultural influence of the Maccabees. The Hellenistic way of life was already entrenched onto the Jewish people. However, after the Maccabees conquered the whole of Judea and enforced the collapse of the Seleucid kingdom in Palestine, the Israelite people imposed themselves as an autonomous group. Judea was now free from Seleucid rule, and the death of Antiochus VII in 129 BCE confirmed this. The Israelite people were now content with the new political purpose of the Maccabees. And although no brother of Judah survived, with Simon being the last leader of the Maccabees, who died in 134 BCE, their intentions still flourished. There is no general consensus on the nature of the revolt. Some see it as an economic or religious civil war. The Hellenized Jews that were propped up with the support of the Seleucids against the zealous, who could only turn to their religion, while others tend to think that it was more than a class victory. It was an example of success in fighting against oppression. The outcome, however, remained the same. The formation of Hasmonean dynasty and autonomous Jewish rule over Palestine that would last a generation. The hopes of the Jewish monarchy was realized. So too was the freedom to practice the Israelite religion. This experience will be vital in the history of the Israelite people, particularly in Jerusalem, in the following century. So you pretty much have what happened. You pretty much have what it is in history. So now what we're going to do, we're going to jump into the Maccabees. We're going to go to the Apocrypha. We're going to go to 1 Maccabees 2, and we're going to start at 25, right? 1 Maccabees 2, and we'll start at 25. Let's take a look at this real quick. And we're going to look at it actually right out of the Apocrypha, because that's exactly where we find the Maccabees. So 1 Maccabees 2, 25 to 70. First Maccabees chapter 2, we're going to start at 25. Chapter 2, 2 and 25, verse 25. There we go. So let's look at it from here. Let me make sure, because sometime when you go digital, chapter 2, verse 25. There you go. Also, the king's commissioner, who compelled men to sacrifice, he killed at that time, and the altar he pulled down. Thus dealt he zealously for the war of God, like as Phineas did unto Zambri, the son of Salam. And Mattathias cried throughout the city with a loud voice, saying, whosoever is zealous of the law and maintaineth the covenant, let him follow me. Okay, this is what we read before. So he and his sons fled into the mountains and left all that ever they had in the city. The many that sought after justice and judgment went down into the wilderness to dwell with them, both they and their children and their wives and their cattle, because afflictions increased sore upon them. Now, when it was told the king's servants and the host that was at Jerusalem in the city of David, that certain men who had broken the king's commandment were going down into secret places into the wilderness, they pursued after them a great number, and having overtaken them, they encamped against them and made war against them on the Sabbath day. That was an advantage. And they said unto them, let that which ye have done hereunto suffice. Come forth and do according to the commandment of the king, and ye shall live. It's like, okay, we'll forgive what you did so far, but give up now, and you'll save yourself alive, right? But they said, we will not come forth, neither will we do the king's commandment to profane the Sabbath, right? We ain't gonna do none of that stuff. So then they gave them the battle with all speeds, right? So it was lit at that point, right? Albeit they answered them not, neither cast they a stone at them, nor stopped the places where they hid, but said, let us die all in our innocency. Heaven and earth will testify for us that ye put us to death wrongfully, right? So they wouldn't fight back. This is how they got many of their victories, right? Rome did the same thing. That's a story for another time, in other places in history, because Israel wouldn't fight back on the Sabbath, but that changed. So they rose up again against them in battle on the Sabbath, and they slew them with their wives, their children, and their cattle, to the number of 1,000 people. Now, when Mattathias and his friends understood hereof, they mourned for them right sore. And one of them said to another, if we all do as our brethren have done, and fight not for our lives and laws against the heathen, they will now quickly root us out of the earth, meaning we're going to go extinct. At that time, therefore, they decreed, saying, whosoever shall come to make battle with us on the Sabbath day, we will fight against him, neither will we die all as our brethren that were murdered in the secret place. Then came there unto him a company of Assyrians, who were mighty men of Israel, even all such as were voluntarily devoted unto the law. Also all they that fled for persecution joined themselves unto them, and were a stay unto them. So they joined their forces and smote sinful men in their anger, and wicked men in their wrath, but the rest fled to the heathen to succor. Then Mattathias and his friends went round about and pulled down the altars. And what children soever they found within the coast of Israel uncircumcised, those they circumcised valiantly. Getting back to that covenant, guys. They pursued also after the proud men, and work prospered in their hand. So they recovered the law out of the hand of the Gentiles, and out of the Gentile and out of the hand of kings, and neither suffered they the sinner to triumph. Now, when the time drew near that Mattathias should die, he said unto his sons, now has pride and rebuke gotten strength in the time of destruction and the wrath of indignation. Now, therefore, my sons, be ye zealous for the law, and give your lives for the covenant of your fathers. I agree with that. Call to remembrance what acts our fathers did in their time. So shall ye receive great honor and an everlasting name. Was not Abraham found faithful in temptation, and it was imputed unto him for righteousness? Joseph, in the time of his distress, kept the commandments and was made Lord over Egypt. Phinehas, our father, in being zealous and fervent, obtained the covenant of an everlasting priesthood. Jesus, for fulfilling the word, was made a judge in Israel. This is a different Jesus. Caleb, for hearing witness before the congregation received the heritage of the land. David, for being merciful, possessed the throne of an everlasting kingdom. Elias, for being zealous and fervent for the law, was taken up into heaven. Ananias, Azarias, and Mishael, by believing, were saved out of the flame. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, right? Daniel, for his innocency, was delivered from the mouth of lions. And thus consider ye throughout all generations that none that put their trust in him shall be overcome. Fear not then the words of a sinful man, for his glory shall be dung and worms. Today he shall be lifted up, and tomorrow he shall not be found, because he is returned unto his dust, and his thought is come to nothing. Wherefore ye, my sons, be valiant and show yourselves men in the behalf of the law, for by it shall ye obtain glory. And behold, I know that your brother Simon is a man of counsel, and give ear unto him always. He shall be a father unto you. As for Judah Maccabeus, he has been mighty and strong, and even from his youth up, let him be your captain and fight the battle of the people. Take also unto you all those that observe the law, and avenge ye the wrong of your people. Recompense fully the heathen, and take heed to the commandments of the law. So he blessed them, and as was gathered to his fathers. And he died in the 146th year. And his sons buried him in sepulchres of his fathers of Modin. And all Israel made great lamentations for him. Okay, so we see the first part with Matthias, right? We see this first part. We're going to look at the second part. We're going to go to chapter 4, right? We're going to start at verse 9. But we see the first part with Matthias. Now he, like I said in history, he was a general probably about a year. I mean, he was a priest longer than that. But when he led this revolt, about a year or so, right? And then he, right before he died, he was already said, okay, Simon, he's a very smart man. He's going to be that dude. But for right now, it's Judas Maccabees. He's a warrior. He's a general. Okay? So follow him. And be zealous for this law. Fight for the covenant. Fight for the Most High. If you do that, you will not be forgotten. You will be in glory if you do this. I just want you guys to see how important this was. This was crucial. Crucial, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? This was a big deal. That's why I wanted to read this. Okay? This was a big deal. So we're going to go to 1 Maccabees chapter 4, 5 through 59. 1 Maccabees chapter 4. 1 Maccabees chapter 4, verse 5. And in the mean season came Gorgias, right? I was about to say Gorgias. Gorgias by night into the camp of Judas. And when he found no man there, he sought them in the mountains. For he said, these fellows flee from us. But as soon as it was day, Judas showed himself in the plain with 3,000 men who nevertheless had neither armor nor swords to their minds. And they saw the camp of the heathen that was strong and well harnessed and compassed round about with horsemen. And these were experts of war. Then said Judas to the men that were with him, fear ye not their multitude, neither be afraid of their assault. Remember now our fathers were delivered in the Red Sea when Pharaoh pursued them with an army. Now, therefore, let us cry unto heaven, if peradventure the Lord will have mercy upon us and remember the covenant of our fathers and destroy this host before our face this day. Okay, he said, so maybe the Lord will have mercy on us and give us victory over this army. Verse 11. That so all the heathen may know that there is one who delivered and saved Israel. Then the strangers lifted up their eyes and saw them coming over against him. Wherefore they went out of the camp to battle, but they that were with Judas sounded their trumpets. So they joined battle. And the heathen began discomfiting and fled into the plain, and albeit all the hindmost of them were slain with the sword. For they pursued them unto Gazaria, and unto the plains of Idumea, and Azotus, and Jamnia, so that there were slain of them upon a 3,000 men. This done, Judas returned again with his host from pursuing them, and said to the people, be not greedy of the spoil, inasmuch as there is a battle before us. And Jodreus and his host are here by us in the mountain. But stand ye now against our enemies and overcome them, and after this ye may boldly take the spoils, right? So the spoils of war, you kill them and you take their stuff, their weapons and armament, jewelry, whatever they may have, their money, whatever they have on them, right? And Judas was yet speaking these words, and there appeared a part of them looking out of the mountain, who, when they perceived that the Jews had put their host to flight and were burning the tents, for the smoke that was seen declared what was done. When, therefore, they perceived these things, they were so afraid, and seeing also the host of Judas in the plain, ready to fight, they fled every one into the land of strangers. And then Judas returned to spoil the tents, where they had got much gold and silver and blue silk and purple of the sea and great riches. See what I mean? After this, they went home and sung a song of thanksgiving and praised the Lord in heaven, because it is good, because his mercy endured forever. Sounds very biblical, right? Thus Israel had a great deliverance that day. Now, all the strangers that had escaped came and told Lysias what had appeared. We read Lysias in history, right? Who, when he had heard thereof, was confounded and discouraged, because neither such things as he were done unto Israel, nor such things as the king commanded him were come to pass. The next year, therefore, following, Lysias gathered together 70,000 choice men of foot and 5,000 horsemen, that he might subdue them. So they came into Idumea and pitched their tent at Bethsura, and Judas met them with 10,000 men. And when he saw that mighty army, he prayed and said, blessed art thou, O Savior of Israel, who didst quell the violence of the mighty man by the hand of thy servant David, and gavest the host of strangers into the hands of Jonathan the son of Saul and his armor bearer. Shut up this army in the hand of thy people Israel, and let them be confounded in their power and horsemen. Make them to be of no courage, and cause the boldness of their strength to fall away, and let them quake at their destruction. Cast them down with the sword of them that love thee, and let those that know thy name praise thee with thanksgiving. So they joined battle, and there were slain of the host of Lysias about 5,000 men. Even before them were they slain. Now, when Lysias saw his army put to flight, and the manliness of Judas' soldiers, and how they were ready either to live or die valiantly, he went unto Antiochus, and gathered together a company of strangers, and having made his army greater than it was, he purposed to come again into Judea. Then said Judas and his brethren, behold, our enemies are discomforted. Let us go up to cleanse and dedicate the sanctuary. Dedicate the sanctuary. You guys getting it? Dedicate. Upon this, all the hosts assembled themselves together and went up into Mount Zion. And when they saw the sanctuary desolate, and the altar profaned, and the gates burned up, and shrubs growing in the courts as in a forest, or in one of the mountains, yea, and the priest's chambers pulled down, they rent their clothes and made great lamentation and cast ashes upon their heads. They were upset. It was appalling. It was unconscionable what had happened to the temple. This holy place that symbolizes the presence of God dwelling with his people. It was sacrilegious. This was mourning and lamentations. 40. And fell down flat to the ground upon their faces, and blew an alarm with the trumpets, and cried towards heaven. Then Judas appointed certain men to fight against those that were in the fortress until he had cleansed the sanctuary. So he chose priests of blameless conversation, lifestyle, such as had pleasure in the law, So the Most High giving these guys victories, and you mean to tell me he's not with these people? They're outnumbered on every side. It seemed hopeless. Outnumbered at least 5-1. And the Most High won them back. The sanctuary. This is that silent 400 years between Malachi and Matthew's. This is what happened in between that. This is the part that's missing. Who cleansed the sanctuary and bear out the defiled stones into an unclean place. And when as they consulted what to do with the altar of burnt offerings, which was profane, they thought it best to pull it down, lest it should be a reproach to them. Because the heathen had defiled it, wherefore they pulled it down. No, it's already defiled. We don't have nothing to do with it. Get rid of it. We'll do another one. We don't want to salvage anything that the heathen put their hands on. Right? And they laid up the stones in the mountains of the temple in a convenient place until there should come a prophet to show what should be done with them. Right? They wanted a prophet to come and let them know. Then they took whole stones according to the law and built a new altar according to the former, like it was before. And made up the sanctuary and the things that were within the temple and hallowed the courts. They were cleaning this out. They made also new holy vessels, and into the temple they brought the candlestick and the altar of burnt offerings and of incense and the table. And upon the altar they burned incense, and the lamps that were upon the candlestick they lighted, that they might give light in the temple. Okay, so this just give you an idea. This is that Hannuka right here. They already dedicated the first temple. They lost the temple, and then they won it back right here and rededicated the temple, Hanukkah the temple. Okay, so they Hannuka again. They cleansed it out, all the profane, anything the heathens touched. They want to get rid of it. They were done with that. So we're going to continue. We're going to go to another place real quick. Let's go to First Maccabees. We're going to go to chapter 5. So let's go to 63 to 68. 63 to 68. Okay, we're going to go to chapter 5, 63. Okay, chapter 5, 63. Albeit the man Judas and his brethren were greatly renowned in the sight of all Israel and all of the heathen, wheresoever their name was heard of, insomuch as the people assembled unto them with joyful acclamations. And afterwards, went Judas forth with his brethren, and fought against the children of Esau in the land toward the south, where he smote Hebron and the towns thereof, and pulled down the fortress of it, and burned the towers thereof round about. From thence he moved to go into the land of the Philistines, and passed through Samaria. At that time, certain priests desirous to show their valor were slain in battle, for that they went out to fight unadvisedly. So Judas turned to Azotus in the land of the Philistines, and when he had pulled down their altars and burned their carved images with fire and spoiled their cities, he returned into the land of Judea. Okay, so I just want you to see some of the campaign, right? Some of the campaign of Judas Maccabees. We're going to go to one more place in the Maccabees, and then we'll move to our last two spots in the Bible, right? So we're going to go to 2 Maccabees 1, start at verse 1. 2 Maccabees 1, starting at verse 1. So 2 Maccabees 1 and 1. It says, the brethren, the Jews that be in Jerusalem and in the land of Judea, wish unto the brethren, the Jews that were throughout Egypt, health and peace. And God be gracious unto you, and remember this covenant that he made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, his faithful servants. and give you all a heart to serve him and to do his will with a good courage and of a willing mind. And open your hearts in his law and commandments and send you peace and hear your prayers and be at one with you and never forsake you in times of trouble. And now we be here praying for you. What time as Demetrius reigned in the 169th year, we, the Jews, wrote unto you in the extremity of trouble that came upon us in those days, from the time that Jason and his company revolted from the Holy Land and kingdom, and burnt a torch and shed innocent blood. Then we prayed unto the Lord and were heard. We offered also sacrifices and fine flour and lighted the candles and set forth the loaves. And now see that ye keep the Feast of Tabernacles in the month Caslu. In the 168th year, the people that were at Jerusalem and in Judea and the council and Judas sent greeting and health unto Aristobulus, king of Ptolemais, master, who was of the stock of the anointed priests, and to the Jews that were in Egypt. Insomuch as God had delivered us from great perils, and we thank him highly, as having been in battle against a king. And he cast them out that fought within the holy city. For when the leader was come into Persia, and the army with him that seemed invincible, they were slain in the temple of Nania by the deceit of Nania's priest. For Antiochus, as though he would marry her, came into the place, and his friends that were with him, to receive money in name of a dowry, which when the priest of Nania had set forth, he was entered into a small company into the compass of the temple. They shut the temple as soon as Antiochus was come in, and opening a privy door of the floor, they threw stones like thunderbolts and struck down the captain, hewn them in pieces, broke off their heads, and cast them to those that were without. Blessed be our God in all things, who had delivered up the ungodly. Therefore, whereas we are now purpose to keep the purification of the temple upon the 25th day of the month Caslu, talking about December, we thought it necessary to certify you thereof, that ye also might keep it, as the feast of the tabernacles and of the fire, which was given us when Nehemiah offered sacrifice. After that, he had builded the temple and the altar. So these were some of the final words that Judas and the Maccabees was encouraging the people. Hey, we got the temple back. We're back. Well, let's dedicate. Let's do this thing right. We should celebrate this thing, and we encourage you to keep this particular feast, right? Keep this feast, this dedication, and of course, go back to keeping the Feast of Tabernacles, because they were in Jerusalem. They were around that. Okay, but it marked that day. It marked that day. That's what I say. If you want to rehearse the matter, okay, fine. And if you don't, at least know the history. At the very least. At least know what our forefathers went through. Amen? Let's go to our last two places here. We're going to go to Exodus 25. Exodus 25. And we're going to read 31, starting at 31 through 40, because now we want to see what this whole menorah thing is all about, right? So is it 7? Is it 9? What is it biblically? If we want to have this menorah, when we buy these menorahs and set it around our house to remind us of this history, what's the right number? What's it supposed to look like? How's prescribed? Remember, a lot of times Israel got in a bunch of trouble because they would not do things according to the instructions of the Most High, right? According to the instructions. So let's take a look at this. So we're going to read 31. So in Exodus 25, we're going to read 31 to 40. And it says, "And thou shalt make a candlestick of pure gold, of beaten work, shall the candlestick be made. His shaft and his branches, his bowls, his knops, and his flowers shall be of the same, right? All going to be the same size, same look, same all that, right? And 6 branches shall come out of the side of it, 3 branches of the candlestick out of one side, and 3 branches out of the candlestick out of the other side. So there's one in the middle, 3 come out of it, one side, 3 come out of the other side. So that's 7. 3 bowls made like unto almond with a knop and a flower in one branch, and 3 bowls made like almonds in the other branch with a knop and a flower. So in the 6th branch that come out of the candlestick. And in the candlestick itself, right in the middle, shall be 4 bowls made like unto almonds with their knops and their flowers. And there shall be a knop under 2 branches of the same, and a knop under the 2 branches of the same, and a knop under 2 branches of the same, according to the 6 branches that proceed out of the candlestick. So the candlestick and 6 branches, right? We got it? Their knops and their branches shall be of the same. All it shall be one beaten work of pure gold. And thou shalt make the 7 lamps thereof. And see, it says right there, 7 lamps thereof. And they shall light the lamps thereof, that they may give light over against it. And the tongs thereof, and the snuff dishes thereof, shall be of pure gold. Of a talent of pure gold, which is a weight, of a talent of pure gold shall he make it with all these vessels. And look that thou make them after their pattern, which was shown thee in the mount. So this is why it even has a pattern. It even has a pattern. So this is a pattern that we should follow, right? Well, not now, because we don't have a real menorah going to the temple and all that stuff. But this is the pattern that they were supposed to follow at the time, right? So when you see these menorahs now, and you see the 9 branches and all of that, no, it doesn't matter what excuse that you're given as to why it's 9 branches. It's not biblical. Consider that for a moment, brothers and sisters. It doesn't matter the excuse that whatever excuse they come up with, it's not biblical. It's not what you find written in the scriptures, right? This is that going astray. This is what happens. This is how it starts. Let's go on over to John 10. When people want to do their own thing, oh, well, 7, I got a better idea. How about 9? Let's add 2 more branches. No, we're not doing that. So we're going to go John 10. John 10, we're going to read 22 and 23. 22. And it was at Jerusalem the feast of Hannuka, or dedication, and it was winter. And Jesus walked in the temple in Solomon's porch. I want to stop right there, brothers and sisters. Let me ask you a question. When the Messiah, when Jesus had a problem with something, did he have a problem speaking up? Did he have a problem saying, you're wrong for that? Did he have a problem saying, hypocrites? Did he have a problem checking someone if they were doing something wrong? The Jews were there in Solomon's porch, and so was the Messiah, observing the Feast of Dedication. No rebuke. Nobody got in trouble. I hope someone has got something out of this lesson. So before we get out of here, let me remind you to like, share, comment, subscribe. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. And while you're at it, don't forget to smash that notification bell, because I don't want you to miss any of our lessons. And if you feel so inclined because you feel edified by these lessons and care to donate, check the description box down below. So until next time, search the scriptures, improve all things. Shalom, Israel.